title of this sermon is An Easter Without Lilies. The gospel lesson for today is Matthew 28, 1 through 10. Do you suppose 20 or 30 years from now, people will look back and say, "Remember Easter of 2020? It was the year all, or almost all, the churches were closed." This Easter, as with most of the rest of our lives during this pandemic, is a strange time indeed. I am typing this sermon in my office at the church on Thursday. I am doing this so we can mail a copy of the sermon so the members of our church who aren't able to get online will have a copy before Easter. Later this afternoon, I'm going to meet Rocky in his garage to record this sermon so we can have it available for those who are able to listen online. Easter 2020 is a time of uncertainty because we are unsure of what the future holds. We have all kinds of people from presidents to football coaches telling us what the future holds, but except for God, no one really knows. That famous theologian Yogi Berra said, "It's tough to make predictions, especially about the future." As people of faith, we are able to live with this uncertainty because we know how the story ends. I'm not talking about the story of the coronavirus pandemic. I'm talking about the story of our lives, the story of everyone's life. There have been more than a few persons who have said this pandemic is God's judgment on the world. Really? Do we believe in a loving God who decides to kill innocents with a virus? The ones who claim this pandemic to be God's judgment are the same ones who talk about God destroying the world, killing everyone except a chosen few. Of course, these folks are the same ones who are convinced they are part of the chosen few. As people of faith, we believe the future of the world will not end in holy oblivion, but holy communion. Communion with the one who created us in love, sustains us in love, and ultimately redeems us in love. Our gospel lesson today is Matthew's account of the Easter story. We read that when the two Marys went to see the sepulchre, an angel had rolled the stone away. Peter Marshall, the former chaplain of the Senate, said, "The stone was not moved away so Jesus could escape death. The stone was moved away so we could enter into life." Then the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here, for he is risen, just as he said." One Easter, as I was waiting in the area outside the baptistry, I asked the children who were to be baptized how they were feeling. One little girl said, "I'm scared, but I'm also happy." We read that the women departed quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy. In the midst of all that is different during this pandemic, one thing that is the same is the gift of joy that God has shared through the resurrection of Christ. During the darkest days, it is this joy that sustains us. It is this joy that enables us to say on this Easter, as on every Easter, we come to celebrate the victory of seemingly powerless love over loveless power. It is this Easter joy that enables us, even in the midst of this pandemic, to give thanks. Remember, Paul said, "Give thanks in all circumstances." Paul didn't say give thanks for all circumstances. He said give thanks in all circumstances. In other words, no matter how dark the days, we can give thanks, knowing death does not have the last word, knowing life has the last word, knowing God has the last word. Hear these words of hope and joy. To say that Jesus has risen from the dead is not to say that he has returned to his earthly life. That was gone. It is dead. To say that Jesus is risen from the dead is to say that God reached into that tomb and into history, lifting Jesus to a new life. It is to say that God will do the same for each of us. This is terrifying. In order to receive this life, we have to stop clinging to the old one. We have to stop looking for the living among the dead. Stop obsessing over the right career move. Stop pressuring the kids to be perfect. Stop fantasizing about what the latest diet will do for our bodies. It is all going to die anyway, so stop. Go to the empty tomb, where there is the promise of a new life that will never die. You might have noticed the title of this sermon, "In Easter Without Lilies." I've borrowed the title from a movie I saw several years ago entitled A Christmas Without Snow. The movie was a story of a recently divorced woman who had moved from Nebraska to California, thus the title, A Christmas Without Snow. I've forgotten most of the details of the story, but I remember the woman joined a church choir. The choir was practicing to perform Handel's Messiah for the Christmas Eve service. The choir director was played by the wonderful actor John Houseman. In the movie, the choir director was very demanding of the choir members. I'm trying to think of an acceptable way to describe him. Let's put it this way. He had a remarkable resemblance to the part of a racehorse that crosses the finish line last. One woman in the movie sang with much gusto, but she was not able to carry a tune in the proverbial paper bag. The choir director embarrassed her in front of the choir for her lack of musical talent. Instead of quitting, however, because she wanted so much to be part of the choir, she volunteered to make refreshments for the choir and sew the choir robes, which were in a sad state of disrepair. I suppose we could all learn from her graciousness. Partly because of the choir director's demanding nature, and partly in spite of his demanding nature, the group of amateurs who comprised the choir gave a flawless performance. They did not have snow that Christmas, but they had something better. They had become evangelists in the best sense of the word. Through their performance, they had shared the good news of life in Christ. In the Palm Sunday sermon, I used several words to describe the events of the past few weeks. Strange, bizarre, weird, scary, crazy, frightening, disastrous, catastrophic, confusing, depressing, frustrating, and on and on. I did not mention one word that might be used to describe our present situation. It is the word opportunity. This is a wonderful opportunity for those of us at First Christian Church Tulsa and for all followers of Christ to share, as the church choir shared, the good news of life in Christ. Most of us would never be able to sing the Messiah, but each of us, through simple acts of kindness and concern, can share the good news by the way we treat those around us. If this would happen, if we would try to be the church Christ intends for us to be, maybe in 20 or 30 years, people will look back and say, that was when the church learned we don't need lilies to have Easter. All we need is faith to follow the example of the one who is risen. This Easter 2020, this strange Easter of 2020 and always, it is my prayer for each of you that you will be able to join with the chorus of saints who sing, I know, that my Redeemer lives. Amen.
Faith's will